Hello, everybody. Hopefully, you can hear me. Feel free to post in the chat, post a hello. Let us know where you're coming from, where you're watching from, or just give us a little greeting. So, welcome back to Lunch with Leo. I'm going to do a listicle today. That's where you do a list with a topic. I like lists. It helps me feel like I covered all the topics. I didn't leave anything out. Kind of gives me parameters, keeps me from rambling so much. My dog is right here next to me and she hears me talking. She thinks I'm talking to her. I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. Come here. Okay. Yeah, she's a Velcro dog. Okay. All right. Thank you. Good job. She's a Velcro dog and she hears me talking, so she thinks I'm trying to call her to me. I'm the only person in the house right now, and so she's stuck right here next to me. If I try to lock her out, she'll just bark and scratch on the door, so I just give up. All right, I've got notes today. Let me pull up my notes today. Make sure that I've hit all the topics that I'm supposed to for my little speech. So today I wanted to, I just jotted down a quick list on some insights on just some general ideas of how life has changed and how to deal with life after becoming a widow, especially for the long haul. Maybe not necessarily in the very beginning of fresh grief, but just over time as we're trying to figure out who are we now? What does our life mean now? How has our life changed, and how is it going to change? The dynamics of friendships and family and all that good stuff. So I wanted to just quickly talk about 10 different insights that I had about that. And I am sorry if she's making noise. Her tail is wagging against the trash can over here. All right, you need to lay down. Lay down. Lay down. Now lay down. Lay down. Good girl. Good girl. She probably won't stay there, but okay. So let me quickly go over this because I have sent the youngest child off to her siblings. So she has been staying with her siblings, her brother and sister, for the last 3 days or so. And they texted me last night and said, the brother texted me last night and says, when are you coming to get her? She's hard to clean up after. And I said, then don't clean up after her. Make her clean up after herself. And then the older daughter who's keeping her, they live together in a house. They're roommates in a house. The other daughter says, when are you coming to get her? She's really expensive to feed. So I thought, what better birth control than to send your younger sibling to come stay with you for a few days, and you realize how messy they are and how, would you stop, how messy they are and how expensive they are to feed, right? And to clothe and all the other things. All right. So anyway, as soon as this live is over, I will be heading about an hour south to go pick her up from her siblings because they are anxiously awaiting for mom to come and save them from the messy, expensive sibling that they've been keeping. Anyway, all right, so let's talk about it. Insight number 1, embracing the complexity of emotions. So there are so many different emotions that we feel when we become widowed, and some of those are really strong, especially in the beginning, and they come so quickly and they can change. And there's so many of them bundled up in one big package when we first become widowed that a lot of times we can't even we can't handle them all at the same time. We don't know how to process them. We don't know what to do with them. We don't know how to act upon them. And so just understanding that it's not just going to be sadness. It's not just going to be grief and, oh, I'm sad because I lost my person. It's not just that. It's so much more than that, so much more complex than that, there's just so many other emotions that come balled up with it. And we have to figure out how to dissect all of those emotions and figure out how to process them one by one. And it's hard to even decide what to attend to first when there's so much going on at the same time. So just understand that it is very complex and that it's okay. You don't have to feel all the things all at once, and you don't have to tend to everything all at once, and that it can be overwhelming, but I promise it's not going to always feel so overwhelming as it does in the very beginning when we first are starting along on this journey. So insight number 2 is finding strength and vulnerability. What I mean by that is, a lot of times I've heard stories about widows who maybe they got married straight out of high school or when they were very young. and they've been married for 40, 50, 60 or longer years. And they never really had to, there's certain things they never had to learn how to do because they had the women's role and they had the man's role. And in traditional marriages, a lot of times the man just takes care of the man things, the yard, the handyman stuff, the car maintenance stuff, maybe the pet handling stuff and things like that. And so when we become widowed for the first time, a lot of times that's the first time that we've had to even think about how we go about doing even simple tasks around the house, like changing light bulbs or, changing a lock or unclogging a toilet or a sink or something like that. So a lot of times I've heard stories about widows who have said, I never thought I was going to have to learn how to do this. And I didn't even want to learn how to do this, but I had to. And because of that, I went on YouTube and watched a video and I learned how to change the oil in my car or a tire on my car, something like that. And then after they finished learning it and doing it, they're so proud of themselves because they didn't even know that they had the knowledge or the strength or the ability to be able to do something like that. And so and becoming vulnerable like that and having no other choice but to learn new things and to figure out how to cope and problem solve on things that we never had to deal with before. There is actually a strength in that. There's also a strength in being so vulnerable and being used to not having to ask for help, and having to break down and do that sometimes for the first time. And that's something that I've had to do. And it's really tough for me to ask for help. I'm pretty independent, and I feel like it shows a sign of weakness or helplessness or something when you ask for help, and it's hard for me to do that. And so sometimes we just have to break down and do it and kind of get over ourselves and realize, you know what, I do need help. And it's okay if I ask for help, and let me figure out who's the best person to ask to help me with whatever this is that I need to get done. So insight number 3 is nurturing, self-care, and self-compassion. And by the way, I'm not looking at the chat right now. I'm looking at my notes. So after this insight, I'm going to check the chat and just kind of see who's been popping up. So nurturing, self-care, and self-compassion. So I talk about this all the time, but there's a reason why. If you hear the same thing over and over again, if you hear a piece of advice over and over again from lots of different people multiple times, it's probably because there's something to it, right? And so it's our job to take care of ourselves, and our mental health is tied to our physical health. So if we're not taking care of our bodies, if we're not taking care of our sleep habits, our eating habits, our hygiene habits, our routine habits, if we're not, feeding our soul spiritually, if we're not doing those things for ourselves, then it's going to be really hard to deal with all the strong emotions that come along with this extreme loss. And so the first thing that you can do is to look inward. And I know that's hard for some of us, to look inward and to just make sure that we're doing the best that we can to take care of ourselves. And I'm bad about that too. I can give the advice and I have a hard time taking it as well. And so right now gosh, I'm covered in here. Right now I'm dealing with I'm dealing with a lot of skin issues. Like last time I was on this live video, I started turning red from the reaction from one of the medicines that I was taking, and somebody had mentioned niacin, I think it was, and I went and looked through my bottle of supplements, and lo and behold, niacin was one of those in the bottle. And so I had to throw it out because it had like I was taking this supplement thinking I was doing something good for myself, and I was having this reaction to it. And now for the past, I'm on my second day of having like some kind of hives. My whole back is broken out in hives. It's been itching and it's bumpy and it's red, and it's like I just took another Benadryl, and problem is when you take Benadryl, it makes you drowsy. So, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if we did run out of our regular laundry detergent and had to switch over to some other stuff. And I'm normally not real sensitive to laundry detergent, but maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but it is killing me right about now. But that's not really necessarily not taking care of myself, but just, being aware of what's going on and understanding that as we get older, other things happen to us, and just knowing that we need to take care of ourselves and keep ourselves in as good of condition as we can, so that we don't have to deal with other things on top of our grief, like medical problems and doctor's visits and medical procedures and lots of different medicines and all that kind of stuff. And just give yourself a break. Don't hold yourself to this high standard and know that, oh my gosh, I have to work out every single day to keep myself in shape. No, you don't. Go ahead and give yourself some grace, but just know that it's important to develop routines and all of these things, so that and again, it's okay to skip every once in a while of whatever your routine is, but just know that if you skip a routine too many times, it's no longer going to be a routine, right? And so just try to keep that balance going. All right, so that was number 3. I'm going to check in my chat here. It says, Meryl says, hi, Leo, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. And Vigilium says, hello. Missy says, hello from Frozen, Kansas. Hello, Missy. I've been missing you, Missy. Frozen, Kansas. We even got snow in Georgia. We got snow, and then it sat in the yard. And of course, whenever we get one snowflake that sticks on the ground in Georgia, everything shuts down. The grocery stores did stay open for the most part, but all the fast food places shut down, the schools shut down, the churches shut down, like everything shut down. And there's still snow on the ground from it, like in different tiny little patches. It's not like covering, but like places that haven't got much sun over the last couple of days, we're still having some crunchy little patches of snow outside when I walk the dog. So I'm sure that Missy in Kansas, you guys are I hope that you're huddling up and that you still have power and everything. Mary Lynn says, glad to be here for the live. Yes. Thank you for making it in. Vigilium says, very true. I feel like I still haven't. I'm sure that's probably about one of the topics that I talked about already from 1 through 3. Susan says, even after 9 years, I still have trouble asking for help. And I think that's just a personality trait in some of us. Like some of us just have that personality trait where we just feel bad about, I don't know how you feel, Susan, but I feel like I'm burdening people. I'm bothering them. I don't want to burden them with my problems. I don't want to bother them with my problems. And so I want to, take care of it myself. So that's how it makes me feel anyway. Idea Factory says, just remembered, been shredding boxes of stuff, six done. Yeah. Weekend project on decluttering. Yay. Okay. Awesome. We talked last week about, getting rid of excess things and decluttering and just kind of keeping our surroundings, in a peaceful way. And so, and my whole basement is needing to be decluttered, and we're working on that one piece at a time. And the sad thing is that I can't just declutter everything, because part of it is for my business. Like a lot of it is inventory for my eBay store. And so it's not really that it needs to be decluttered. It needs to be sold. But if I sell it, I'm just going to bring in something else to take its place. So for me, it's not a matter of decluttering. It's a matter of organizing and having everything set up and everything in its place, so I can find things easier, I can list things easier, and I can move the rotation of the inventory out. Aniki, hello for, I know that you are in somewhere in Europe. No, I can't remember what country. You'll have to remind me. Finland, maybe? Nice to see you again. It really feels like sisterhood, your channel. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's the hope. That's the hope, is that, it feels like a real community, that everyone can feel welcome. And, we have this shared bond it's a trauma bond, but it is still a shared bond that we all have over this similar type of loss. And so Netherlands, that's what it is. Netherlands. Thank you. I'm going to try to remember that. And Susan says, yes, exactly. Yep. So hopefully everyone does feel like it's a sisterhood or community, because we do have some men that come to our lunch with Leo, and we do have a few men that are members of our group, our Facebook group. And I don't specifically limit it to women only. However, I do make it very clear that it's not a dating site. It's not a place to find new romance. There's a place for that. It's not that I'm against it, but there is a place for that, and it's not going to be our group, simply because mostly the women who come in our group, they're not coming there for that. So if they're coming, for something like that, there's other groups, even for widows, for connections and for romantic connections and finding friendship and that kind of thing. But our group is not for that. So as long as the men who are applying to come in understand that that's not the purpose of our group, that it's really truly just for, for healing and community and friendship and just helping each other through tough times, then that's fine. And so we do have, and as a matter of fact, some of our largest contributors to support and to posting information is some of the men in our group. And so, and then, we get a lot of them that come in, and I feel like, and I think that they have good intentions and they act like they do. And then next thing you know, they're going behind they're going and trying to contact the members of the group and asking for private chats and stuff like that. And so I just had to remove someone from the group yesterday for doing that. What are you doing? She just brought me her, in her mouth. She just brought me her collar that I don't even know how she took it off to begin with. So I don't know if that means she needs a WALK, but I did take her for one before. So, however, she didn't do the number 2. So we'll probably have to take her again as soon as this is over. All right. You're going to have to wait. You have to wait for just a minute. All right. You should have gone earlier when I took you, honestly. All right. Back to my list. Okay. So we finished number 3. Insight number 4, rediscovering your personal identity. That's a tough one because we identify ourselves as the wife of so-and-so or the husband of so-and-so. And we identify ourselves as a half of a couple most of the time when we're married. Being a wife was part of my identity. And now when you've lost your husband, it's like, well, am I still a wife? I'm not a wife anymore. Am I? And it's hard to even think about yourself in the terms of yourself relative to other people in their relationship with other people. So a lot of times your identity comes from who you are seen and what role you play to other people. Like I see myself as a teacher. Well, that means I need students, right? I teach students. So my students would see me as a teacher, or the people who learn from me might see me as a mentor, or, just a person to give advice, to get advice from. I am remarried now, so I do consider myself a wife now, based on the fact that I'm remarried to a fellow widower. I still consider myself a widow because I still deal with the grief and the loss and the aftermath that comes along with losing a spouse, the secondary loss that comes along with it. So when you first become widowed, it's hard because you don't want to identify as a widow. Even though you don't want to, because identifying as a widow means that you have to accept the fact that your husband has died and that you're no longer married to someone who is alive on this earth. And so it's hard to reconstruct yourself in an identity, and in a set of identities, in the same way that you did before. I remember that when I was pregnant with my second child, and I ended up having a miscarriage. But before the miscarriage happened, I went in for the ultrasound, and they found out that the baby had no heartbeat, and so the baby was no longer alive, but I was still pregnant. And they offered to go ahead and do the procedure to resolve what was left of the pregnancy, knowing that the pregnancy wasn't going to be viable. Like, it was no longer, the baby wasn't alive anymore. Or they said if I could wait and just let nature take its course. So at the time I was like, well, what if they're wrong? And what if it's a mistake? And so I don't want to do anything that, that is a mistake. Like, what if the baby is alive and I have them go in there and, do some procedure that ends their life. So I was like, let me just let nature take its course. If it really is to be, nature will take care of things. And I didn't end up miscarrying for like another 4 or 5 weeks. And so in that time period, like in my mind, I pretty much knew that, the baby was still there, but wasn't developing anymore. And that I wouldn't be having this baby. So I remember walking around thinking, well, am I still pregnant? Do I tell people that I'm pregnant? Do I not? I had already told some people that I was pregnant. So now I got to tell them do I tell them I'm no longer pregnant? Like, it was so hard for me to identify myself because I was walking around still with child, even though my child was no longer developing. So that was a weird, in between situation to be in. And I ended up waiting so long. That was a mistake too, but that's a story for another time. But I waited so long that the miscarriage was so traumatic on my body that I almost died. I lost so much blood that I actually nearly died and had to be like emergency taken to the hospital and given blood transfusions, and they had to revive me a couple times, as a matter of fact. So it was, it just turned out to be this big monstrous thing. But the point is, it's kind of like when parents lose a child. Like if a parent loses their only child, they have this identity crisis of, well, am I still a parent? Am I still a mother? Am I still a father? And of course you are, but you still don't, you have to see yourself that way. And so seeing yourself in a different light suddenly, especially when it's very abrupt, is like a shock to the psyche. And so it's almost like it breaks your brain, and you have to figure out and repeat, piece everything back together and figure out, how do I see myself? How do other people see me? How do I identify myself? So that's, just a job that takes lots and lots of time and doesn't happen overnight. And it's something that we continuously have to work on after we become widowed. So insight number 5 is honoring the past and embracing the future. So the two things together is what's important. Not only do you have to honor the past, of course we have to honor the past and honor the memory of our late spouse and carry on their legacy, but also embrace the future. Embrace is a positive word. Okay. Not reject the future, not dread the future, not worry about the future, but embrace the future. Embrace, connotates something that is a good thing. And that's hard to do because as the farther we move forward in our new life, embracing our future, the farther we're leaving the memory of our spouse behind, it feels like a lot of times. And also, I think sometimes people get stuck with the honoring the past part. And even though they're walking through life, it's like they're walking through life backwards. It's like you're consistently looking to the past all the time, but you're moving forward, which means you're walking backwards, which means you can't see what's ahead of you. You can't prepare for what's ahead of you. You certainly can't embrace or um, fully be involved in what's happening to you in the present or in the future, because your mind and your eyes and your, everything that you're thinking of is looking backwards to honor that past. So that means you're leaving off half of your life because you're walking into whatever you're walking into unprepared, or more like, I don't want to face it, and so I'm just going to not think about it. And so we have to figure out how to balance that, where we can't turn our back on the past completely and never look back and never think about it, because then we have that guilt, and it's not right to do that either. So it's just a balance that you have to figure out how to strike between honoring that past, remembering the past, but also looking towards the future. And it's okay to have hope to the future. It's okay to be happy about your future. It's okay to have a positive feeling about your future, even though that future is without your spouse in it. And that's also a hard mountain to overcome. Probably one of the hardest ones is, how am I supposed to feel happy about this future that is in front of me, that is a future without my husband or my wife? And I can't answer that question in one sentence. That's something we just have to learn how to do over time. And some people get over it. When I mean get over it, I don't mean get over it. I mean like over that mountain, like over that mountaintop. Some people sort of cross that bridge a little more smoothly than others. And some people get tripped up more easily and kind of stay stuck in some of those phases more than others. And depending on where you are and how you're dealing with it, is what type of resources that you might need to seek out in order to help you to get past that bridge. So for insight number 6, seeking support and building community. So we just talked about like how well are you managing that transition, from the past to looking to the future, depending on how well you're doing with that, as to what kind of support that you might need. And just remember that we were made and created to be social creatures. And so some of us prefer alone time, and we do a little bit better by ourselves, or we just enjoy the company of our own selves. And I'm kind of like that. I don't really get lonely, because when I'm by myself, I seek out things that only I like to do. And so when I find myself alone, instead of me dreading it and saying, "Oh, I'm so lonely, I don't have anybody to talk to," that's the time where I'm like, "Oh, now I get to watch something on YouTube that only I like to watch, that nobody else likes to watch but me." And so that's my time to be able to really focus on myself, or focus on what it is that I want to do, or want to think about, or want to participate in, or a hobby that I like. So rather than seeing alone time as lonely time, I more see it as a time that I can fully experience the things in life that are just for me. Because when you're around other people, you're constantly making, you might not think it, but you're constantly making concessions and trying to find things that would accommodate both people or all the family. Like when you're making dinner, if you're going to make dinner for just yourself or lunch or whatever meal, you can make whatever you want. You can make breakfast for lunch. You can eat crackers you can eat cereal for dinner if you want to. It might not be the healthiest, but like you can, right? But if you're cooking for your family, you're not going to be like, okay, guys, let's sit at the table. I'm going to pour everybody cereal for dinner. Like I'm not saying it never happens, but unlikely. So, those are times that you don't necessarily have to make all those concessions and consider everybody else wants, needs, and desires. And but there's also other times, especially when you've been around somebody your whole life and you're not used to being by yourself, you sort of have to reteach yourself how to do that. And so being by yourself can feel lonely. And when you get in that rut and you're feeling lonely and you're feeling like nobody cares about me, or I one of the hardest parts for me, the transition for me, was not being somebody's number one anymore. Like, I mean, I had people that cared about me. I had people that were nice to me. I had kids around me all the time, and I had a job. And so I didn't even spend a whole lot of time by myself because I was still a mom of 4 kids. And then shortly after that, I was a grandma, and my grandson was living with us as well. And so I wasn't alone very much, but it was hard for me to just be a person who is just, um, moving from group to group and community to community, and from social interaction to social interaction, but never being that one person's person. Like if you ever watch Grey's Anatomy, when the two girls are their best friends, um, Christina and Meredith, they're like best friends, and they tell each other, well, you're my person, like meaning you're my go-to person, right? You're my ride or die. And so um, for me, even though I wasn't really lonely, I had lots of people around me, but I didn't have that person. And it wasn't just that I didn't have that person, it's that I wasn't that person for someone else. Like I wasn't, um, the center of anybody's world anymore, like I was when I was married. And that was a hard transition to make. Because it's like if I broke down on the side of the road, yeah, I could call AAA and I could probably find a friend or a family member to call and bother or burden or mess up their whole day and say, hey, I'm stuck on the side of the road. I need you to help me. But when you're married, it's like, that's that person's kind of their role, right? Like that's not their only role, but I'm just saying, like when you're married, you break down on the side of the road, you're just going to call your husband. Like, hey, got to call my husband, let him come help me, because that's what he does, right? And when your spouse is in trouble, you drop everything, you come running to their rescue. And I didn't have that anymore. And so it's not that I felt a panic of thinking I don't have anybody to help me, but it was more like, oh, what friend am I going to try to call, or family member do I have to call to try to come help me out in this situation, instead of just automatically just having that person that I knew when I came home, he was waiting for me. Like now when I come home, yeah, my kids are waiting for me, but for a different reason. Thank God you're home, Mom. What's for dinner? Instead of, hey, honey, how was your day? Can I rub your feet? It's a little bit different of a dynamic there when you come home, right? All right, let me go back and check. Let me go back and check the chat. Um, so too much alone time, Janet says, leads to isolation and spiral down, especially in cold winters. I totally get that. Yes. And so there's always a balance, between alone time by yourself and enjoying that alone time, and then it being like the house is too quiet. I'm sitting here listening to the wind blowing through the trees outside and the house settling. When you can hear the house settling, you're alone and quiet. And so that's where pets can help sometimes. If you're like spending a lot of time alone and you're not going out very much, I know that an animal cannot replace a person, but I also know that having another creature there that relies on you completely, that kind of keeps you from like laying in bed for days at a time and never getting up and not taking care of yourself, because you got to at least take the dog to, O-U-T. I can't say it out loud because she'll get all excited. But, you got to go take them to their bathroom time, and you got to make sure that they're fed and watered every day. And, they just have to be taken care of. And so having to get up and do that gives you a sense of purpose. And also late at night when it's cold and you're snuggled up with your coffee or your hot cocoa or your popcorn and you're watching TV by yourself when you're trying to go to sleep and your mind starts ruminating, that's when a pet can really help to dysregulate that, can kind of interrupt those intrusive thoughts, and you can just sort of sit and enjoy the time with your pet. And they can be very, very good emotional support animals. I mean, they truly can. And like I said, obviously that's not going to replace a spouse. I know that, but it still can give you a lot of comfort, and just a feeling of being loved and loving somebody else, another creature, and just knowing that you're caring for that one, and that creature appreciates you with no judgment, and no real expectations except please feed and water me and pet me and take me when I need to go. And other than that, they don't generally, demand a whole lot, and they give back so much more than they get, honestly. So I would highly recommend that if you're allowed to have one, and that, if you feel like you could put that one into your life, a cat or a dog, or, those are the two most common, but, I've seen some other people with other types of pets too. All right. Insight number 7, embracing change and adaptability. So kind of already touched on this in some of the other topics, but just know that your life it's not the same as it was before. And it's not going to be. And that sucks. That sucks a lot. And in the beginning, it's like we're kids. It's like we're toddlers having temper tantrums. We don't want it to be true. And so we just won't accept it. Like we'll get down and we'll stomp our fists and our feet on the floor, and we'll throw temper tantrums because we don't want that to be the case. We don't want to be alone. We don't want our husband to be gone or our wife. And but no matter how much we kick and scream and protest, we can't change the facts. And so it takes us a little while sometimes for our brain to accept it and for our heart to really accept it. And then we can't get to the hope of the future and the hope of happiness and healing until we get past the acceptance part. If we haven't accepted it yet, we can't go to the next stage. So it's really important that we get to that acceptance stage so that we can move forward with the rest. And the acceptance stage is sometimes the hardest one to get to, because we just don't want to. We don't want to accept it. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to face that fact, even though it is the facts. It's the hardest thing to do. And, it's like you have to do it anyway. And so, like I said, and I don't know the secret formula to getting to that point. We just all have to get there. It's like that mountain that we all have to climb, but we all got to do that part by ourselves. We can get help and resources, but like that acceptance in our brain and our heart has to happen inside on its own. And I don't really know how to explain how to change that, or how to make that happen faster, or how to make it happen at all, because everybody's different. Insight number 8, redefining relationships and priorities. That's a tough one, because a lot of times the relationships are redefined for us and against our will. And I've made a couple of videos specifically about this, about how the dynamics of friendships change and family members change after you become widowed. And my kid's grandma, I call him my kid's grandma, because she's not technically my mother-in-law anymore. She's Dewey's mom, and I'm not married to Dewey anymore, and we do not get along. And everybody, like, that's not a big secret. Everybody in the family knows. We all know. Everybody on YouTube knows. We don't get along with Momo. But, the relationship was a little strained, but it was held together. Dewey was the glue that held our family together, especially between me and his mom. And with him not there anymore, there was nobody, there was no referee in between us. And so it just got nasty. It really got nasty and ugly. And it's still that way. And, for a lot of ways, we don't really come in contact with each other very much anymore. And so there really isn't a relationship between us anymore, because the common bond that we had, he's no longer here. And the other common bonds that we have, the 3 children that I had with Dewey, she doesn't really have much to do with them either. And not that she didn't want to, but she was just the way that she acted and some of the things that she did even made the kids where they were like, I just can't handle Momo anymore. I can't deal with her drama. She's just so much drama. But like the relationship with my sister changed a lot because my sister had been divorced. And so she was single and still raising her kids. And when I became widowed, I don't know if you want to call me single, but like I didn't have my husband around anymore. And so it was my sister and I became a lot closer because it was her raising her kids and me raising my kids and us struggling with all the issues that come along with having teenagers. And so we had a lot in common as far as that goes. And neither one of us had a husband that was helping us out with the kids. And so, we bonded and became a lot closer because of that. But a lot of other relationships can change. Like if you and your husband are friends with another couple or another group of couples and you do things together, play cards or have movie night or go on trips or, go out to eat or whatever. Suddenly it's like, it's weird because they don't know whether to invite you alone. Like, is it a couple and then you? Well, that's a third wheel. Is it two couples and then you? That's a fifth wheel. It's like they don't even know whether to invite you. And even if they did, you feel weird when you're there because you're there without your spouse. And so it's kind of like, And to be honest, sometimes women can be real insecure. I mean, sometimes men can be too. But I've noticed that I've heard a lot of stories about insecure women who suddenly, when you become a widow, they don't want you around anymore because they're afraid that you might try to steal their husband. To me, that's an issue with them, but you still can't help that they feel that way or that they act that way because suddenly they see you as a threat because you're single now, if you want to call it that. You're quote available. You might not consider yourself available, but they might be afraid that their husband might see you as available. And sometimes, being suddenly widowed makes you a target. Some men might come around and try to be a lot more friendly than they were before because they see you and they're like, oh, she's widowed now. Like she might need my help. She might be lonely. I might have to take care of her. And so, while it might be nice if you are looking for doing that, but a lot of times they're not in it for the right reasons. Like they're not coming around because they care about you. They're coming around because maybe, they think that you're lonely. And so you might be an easy target for sex. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. And sometimes you might be. And, or they might be coming around because they might think that you have an inheritance or that you have a life insurance policy or that you might have come into a windfall of money. And then they start coming around for those reasons. And so it's just hard to navigate because, like we talked about, your identity changes, but your identity is based on your relationship and the role of your relationship with other people. So when the role changes and your relationships change, then the dynamics of the relationships around you change between family and friends. A lot of times the in-laws, like I said, a lot of times the whole family of the in-laws, the whole family of your late spouse could turn on you and basically just leave you. That does happen a lot because like, well, he was our son and we see you like a daughter, or we saw you like a daughter as long as you're married to our son. But now that you're not, my son's not around anymore, they don't see you in the same light. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes they kind of abandon you because they're like, well, she's not our blood. And so, we're grieving too because we lost our son or our brother or our cousin or our nephew or whatever. And so it's hard. It's a hard dynamic to figure out. And it really hurts when there's kids involved because his parents are your kids' grandparents. And so it's like, well, what about being a grandparent to the kids? And sometimes they won't even do that. And so it's a rocky terrain to navigate with those relationships. It's really tough. Insight number 9, cultivating gratitude and finding joy. So we've been talking about that a lot in the last few episodes. Being grateful. We went through that over Thanksgiving and during the holidays about finding things to be thankful for and grateful for. But honestly, there is no healing if you cannot if you cannot recognize the blessings that you have around you. And I know what you're thinking. Well, what kind of a blessing is it for my husband to have died? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about separating the difference between your loss and the fact that you are still blessed in some ways. And so we have to move our flashlight from shining on the grief and the sad parts to shining on the parts that make us happy and that might make us smile or that might bring us joy. And I know it's hard. I don't say it lightly. I don't say, and a lot of people are like, well, that's easy for you to say, blah, X, Y, Z. It is easy for me to say, but it wasn't easy for me to do. And it's a simple piece of advice, but that doesn't make it easy to follow. And yes, I am remarried, but just because I'm remarried doesn't mean I'm not dealing with the pain of the grief. It doesn't mean I'm still not dealing with my daughter texting me in the middle of the night saying, I just cried myself to sleep last night because I miss daddy so much. Like those things are still there. And they still have to be felt and dealt with and managed. But I cannot, and you cannot, and no one can surround themselves with nothing but the grief parts of it and the loss parts of it and focus on only the bad parts of it, because you will never come out of that funk if you are focusing on those things all the time. So it's very important to purposely seek out your blessings in your life and to find reasons to be thankful, even if it's just, I'm glad I woke up today. I'm glad that I live, and you might not all live in America, but I'm glad I live where I live, wherever it is that I live. I'm thankful to live in America. As messed up as our country might be right now, I still think it's the greatest country in the world, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I would like to fix some of the issues that we have, but I don't want to leave. I want to fix it. I'm thankful for my home. I have a beautiful home, and I used to say it was all paid for. It's not anymore because I have a mortgage on it. But you know what? My husband and I now are able to make the money to pay for that mortgage. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I have a car that cranks up every time I need to drive it, even though I don't drive it every day. I'm thankful that it's cold as hell outside, but I'm inside and I'm warm because I have heat. I don't go hungry. I have clean water whenever I need it. I have a dog that's over here that's just, very sweet, and she bothers the crap out of me sometimes, but I love her. My kids, all four of my kids are still alive and thriving. Even though the relationship between them is different, and one, I don't even have a relationship with one of them, but I'm thankful that she's out there somewhere, and I still have hope that I might be able to reconcile with her one day. There's so many things that I can be thankful for and grateful for, despite the fact that my husband died. And I could focus on, it was so unfair. He died at such a young age. He was 42. I can't believe that happened, and all the things that he lost. And I still think about those things, but I can't focus on them all the time, or else I would just, it's like laying down in the mud. Once you fall in the mud, you got two choices. You can get up out of the mud, even though it's slippery and hard to get out of, and it's slimy and gross, and it's tough to get out of, and try to take a shower and get cleaned off and dried off or whatever. Or once you fall in the mud, say, well, I'm dirty now, so I guess I'll just roll around in it and just continue to roll around in the mud, never trying to get up. And as you're trying to get up, sometimes you fall back down in it. That happens too sometimes, but keep trying to get up, keep trying to get cleaned off, and keep trying to move forward the best way that you can. And I think that my husband is here. I hope that's him, because I'm by myself in the house with me and just the dog. All right. So that was number 9, cultivating gratitude and finding joy. Yeah, I think my husband's coming in. And then insight number 10, give me 1 second. Hello. Hey, babe. Can you hear me? Hey. I'm on a live session right now. Hey, can you do me a favor? He can't hear me. I'm going to have to close the door. Hold on. Let me go close the door, and then I'll come back for number 10. Hey, Jake, can you do me a favor? I took her out earlier, but she did not move. And then she came and actually brought her collar to me and dropped on the floor. So I think she might need to. But I'm in the middle of a live session right now, so I can't stop. All right. Are you ready? Thank you, Jake. All right. Hey, come on. You ready to go outside? Come on. Good girl. You know how to do it?
I think so. Is that how it goes?
Gives 100 years. There you go. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm back. I'm about to have to close the door for just a second. You got it? Oh, he's struggling. He's struggling to get her collar on. Can you help him? I'm trying to close this door.
Pull her out there and shut that door.
All right. Sorry. Not technical difficulties, pet difficulties. My grandson's here too, and he's worked with his pawpaw today, so he's going to be nice enough to take the dog outside because I think she needs to poop. Anyway, let me check the chat, and then I'll go back for number 10. Oh, we got a big chat. Where are you going? She just busted down the door. She's like, no, I want to go back with mom. Actually, I'm not mom. I'm the grandma. Dallas is her mom. Oh, we got a lot of chats coming in. All right. Anarchy says, Leo, you are so right about reinventing yourself. After 4 years and 4 years, I am changing our house. It makes me sad because he isn't there, but also makes me proud because I did it. See, that's exactly what I was trying to talk about. There's just this mix and this balance that we have to, do. I do better alone because I can sense that people are tired of my grief, and it's only been 4 months. And I'm not done grieving. And sure, you will never be done grieving, but people will be done with listening to you grieve, that's for sure. Unless they're a true friend and they totally understand. But people do get tired of us grieving, especially after a couple months. It's like they move on with their lives and they don't want to hear about it anymore. I mean, it's sad but true, and that's just the way that it goes a lot of the times. And it's really hard after a few months, because if you post something on Facebook about it, they're like, oh my God, this again. And yeah, it's tough. They don't want to they want us to just get over it and be done with it and then be better. Right. 4 years and 4 months, Anarchy. Yeah, I figured that one. Katarina says, hello from Belgrade, Serbia, Europe. Awesome. Katarina, 1 year and 1 month in this journey. Well, I'm glad that you're here, and thank you for joining. You know that we're here at the same time, Monday, noon Eastern time, every Monday for Lunch with Leo. Widow fire is an issue, Mike says. Widow or widower's fire, and it's a physical, widow's fire. We talked about that sometimes. It's not something you really want to think about all the time, but it just is. It's physical. It's lack of physical touch. It's like skin hunger and other types of hunger. And, when you have certain things and you don't have certain things after a while, then that's a big change. And so then it's like, well, how are you supposed to scratch that itch? We have to come up with other ways of handling that. Meryl says, sir, me too, 4 months and still grieving. My sisters no longer call. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Meryl. Maybe call them and then bring up something that's totally not grief related and just be like, hey, you want to go? Hey, how's it going? You want to go out and, I don't know if you can meet them in person or whatever, but call them and I'm not saying don't talk about your husband at all. I'm just saying call them for a different reason besides I'm really sad and having a tough time. Not that you can't say that during the conversation, but like call them and let them know that you're calling to check on them and see how things are going, or if they saw the latest movie or what they had for dinner or whatever, so that they understand that, you can call me, just chat. So Meryl says, I agree, Leo. I prayed really hard about that. The Lord is amazing. Awesome. Katarina says 4 months is so early. Be strong. It is. It's just about that time where things start to kind of sink in that they're permanent. Anarchy says, I'm grateful for your channel. You give words to what I feel. Like I think about it, but I don't focus on it. Yes. That is my hope, is that I can take the feelings that we have inside and like maybe give words to them and explain them in a way that where people are like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. And Anarchy, it's okay. I can, you know what? I taught middle school and high school. And so pretty much I can read between the lines and get the message that people are intending pretty well. So I appreciate you just being here and sharing your thoughts with us. That's what matters. All right, let me go back to number 10. And then I can finish up number 10. Here we go. Inspiring others and leaving a legacy. And so, that's what we need to focus on now is you've got some experience at this point. At some point you have experience and you might be able to help somebody else that's in a tough time based on what you have. That's basically what I try to do with my experience, is that I try to take the experiences that I have and like I said, put them into stories or allegories, or just word them in such a way that it helps people to understand or make sense of things. And and also to let them know that they're not alone, and that whatever it is they're feeling, there's a lot of people out there who probably feel the same way and are going through the same kind of feelings and thoughts and emotions and situations. And I don't know about me being an inspiration to others, but at least bring them a feeling of comfort, hope, peace, acceptance. Just know, that there's hope out there and that things can get better, or we can get better at dealing with the things that we have in front of us. And then leaving a legacy, just like our spouses did. It's our job to carry their legacy forward and make sure that nobody forgets about them by continuing to talk about them and remind our kids about what they were like and what was important to them and how they wanted us to be. And then also knowing that one day you're going to have a legacy that there's going to be things that your family remembers about you when you're gone. I remember when Mimi used to do such and such. I remember when mom used to always say this or do that, or, laugh about memories or whatever, but create that legacy for others. So that, because we're still here for a reason. We might not know what that reason is, but that's part of our job to find out, why are we still here and what is our purpose. And I feel like a big purpose, a big reason why most of us are still here is to help others, to be a blessing to others. And just as others can be a blessing to us. And so whatever you've been dealt with, whatever has been thrown your way, possibly it's a way for you to be able to connect with other people who might be also struggling. And that people might be looking to you and saying, wow, how does she do it? Or, that I want to be like her, or how is she handling this such and such thing? I need to talk to her and see how she's doing X, Y, or Z. It might not even be grief related. It might just be other related. Who knows what it is? All right. But figuring that out is part of our purpose in life, regardless of whether we're widowed or not. And I do think that we're here to be a blessing to other people. So we got to figure out how to do that and then set our minds to it and then put ourselves on that path. All right. Okay. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Let me go back and just check the chat and see if there's anything else. You are an inspiration. That is very nice, but I certainly don't come on here for those types of things. I feel like I have the experiences that I have, and I feel this need to get it out, to put it into words, and just to get that message out there so that other people can pick it up if they want to, and hopefully that it helps somebody. I want to feel like I helped somebody. And if I didn't do it, I would feel like, how many people could I have helped that I chose not to do because I didn't say the words that I wanted to say or express the thoughts that I have in my head. And so, yeah, a strong and a role model. So, and y'all are being so nice. Thank you. I'm not even going to read them all because it's embarrassing. But Meryl says, I'm grateful for you. And with that, we're going to end on that positive note. Thank you so much. Stay warm, stay safe, and just go back and watch the video and pick up what you need to pick up, leave behind what you don't need. And we'll see you again next week. Same time, same place. Bye, guys. Oh, wait, I got one more chat that just came in. Even though there are some Sundays when this church musician, now without my beloved musical teammate, would like to just quit, but it was our calling and his legacy, so I continue on. So, Karen, that's a good example of that. Like being, like having somebody expecting you to be somewhere, like committing yourself to something. It forces you to get up. It forces you to get yourself ready. It forces you to face the world and do those things that you might not otherwise do on your own. So go ahead and commit yourself to a few things. And that way it's less likely you just get back in bed and put the covers over your head and say, I'll just try this another day. All right. So get up and go do it. Be a blessing to others. Figure out a way to do that sometime this week before next week. And then you can share everyone can share their experiences and what they might have done. And I'll check in with that next week when we come back. All right. Bye.